Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Shoes Off Inside. Hello, this is May and Tamlyn, Chamita, Kelly Who. So today, all right, this episode, we're very excited actually, because it is entirely about menopause and women's sexual health. And why is that? Because from the very beginning, when we decided to do this show and launch this show, we had said one of the topics we want to talk about openly and honestly is menopause, because it's not talked about enough, right?
All the guys are going away now.
They're like, what? No. They're like, no.
No. Stick with us. Stick with us. There's important information here.
Exactly, because it's not just about women. Men have to be involved in this conversation as well.
Right.
As well as dogs.
It's about practicing how to talk about this. Yes.
Exactly. So Kelly knows this amazing OBGYN, Dr. Sherry Ross. She goes by Dr. Sherry. And she had gone to her many years ago, right? So you thought we need to talk to her.
Actually.
Okay.
I was seeing Dr. Sherry for decades, but she was not in my insurance plan. And so, I was trying to stick with the plan and start seeing, doctors just within the plan. And I have to say, I need to go back to Dr. Sherry.
Good. Yeah. I think she'll have two other patients as well.
I know, really. So, because when you find a really good doctor, it's like you want to keep that person because they get you, right? It's like a relationship.
I have to share a story with you. My very first gynecologist was a man, and I was a teenager, and I had just turned 18, I guess. And this guy ended up getting his license revoked because he got in trouble for he was accused of holding women at gunpoint after giving them nitrous oxide and crazy stuff. So that was my very first experience with a gynecologist.
Okay, not a good experience.
That's traumatizing.
That's traumatizing.
I will only see women from now on.
I don't blame you, girl. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Dr. Sherry is definitely not that. She is gynecologist to the stars as well. She's delivered many, many celebrity babies and all that, but that's not why she's important. It's because she has been a reproductive rights advocate for 25 years. She's written 2 books, one called She-ology, The Definitive Guide to Women's Intimate Health, period. And then she did the sequel, She-ology, the Shequel. Let's continue the conversation, right? And so she has received nearly every top doctor and patient's choice award in Southern California. And she continues the conversation in the series Lady Parts. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, with Sarah Hyland, the actress, on the Ellen Digital Network. And they openly talk about all things, female, sex, sexual health, all of that. She also created the She-ology sexual wellness products. They're vaginal dilators and vibrators and things like that. And then this summer, she's going to be introducing Rouse, which is a multi-generational woman's intimate skincare and hormonal wellness brand. So she's a busy lady, but she had enough time to talk to us because we invited her to have this really, really important conversation. So here's that interview. All right, Dr. Sherry joins us now. Dr. Sherry, great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
And, of course, we got in touch with you thanks to Kelly Who is a patient of yours.
I've been wanting her on the show since we started the show because I was like, this is the guest that we all want to hear about, information, because we're all going through it, right? We're all in our 50s. We're all either gone through it in the process or about to start.
Right.
And and menopause is one of those things that nobody likes to talk about.
Yeah.
Men, women, us women, we all talk about it amongst ourselves, but there's so much stigma,
but
right?
Still in hushed tones, right? It's not something that is the topic of conversation openly, honestly to this day. So Dr. Sherry, let's bring you into the conversation. So why is that? Menopause has been demonized, over the decades. What's going on there? Why is that?
Well, menopause, it's cancer. You have to whisper it, because it's, it's had culturally and historically such a negative connotation. And I think it's because of ageism and, what it signifies, right? Like the good news, no more birth control, right? You can't get pregnant. Woo-hoo! So that tends to be, a good one. But then that, really puts you in that different category. So now you're no longer fertile.
Yeah.
Fertility, right? It's a sign of strength. It was a goddess. There's no menopause goddess that I'm aware of, unless you are. Aging has historically been looked down upon in society, right? Just when we're kicking into our stride in our 50s, look at all of us here, right? So I just think that's part of it. Like, no one wants to admit they're getting older, and all the good things that estrogen does. It's our superpower. Yeah. It's our total superpower. And now we've lost it. And, Kelly knows about superpowers, right? But it's, so truly, I think the ageism piece to it and what that signifies, so long historically for women.
Can we first talk about the medical side of menopause so we just understand it in its simplest form? Because obviously none of us are doctors except for you. So medically, what exactly takes place in the woman's body when she's going through menopause?
Well, our ovaries, right? That's our source of estrogen. All of a sudden, it doesn't produce estrogen anymore. And some other hormones, some androgens, but it's about estrogen. And basically at around 51 is the average age. Of course, menopause range, can be 45 to 55, but it's on average around 51. And they stop producing estrogen. Well, you stop getting a period for, at least a whole year. That's sort of the definition, but it's all about the ovaries and the production of estrogen. And all of a sudden, what that does from head to toe and all the disruption that it leads to. And that's sort of the simplest, explanation of what menopause is.
So I am so lucky that I have really not had a lot of, negative symptoms from menopause. I didn't get the hot flashes. What I did get, and I think it's due to menopause, is brain fog. Like why does it affect your brain like that?
Yeah. Well, this is, a little bit of a misconception on some level. Like, as we get older, brain fog is truly a phenomenon. Where did I put my keys? What room did I leave them in? Did I lock my car? Did I lock my house? It's not necessarily caused by estrogen, though. It's sort of the timing of estrogen. There's so many timing issues. Brain fog is one of them. I think it definitely seems to be more noticed in our 50s, where a lot of things are more noticeable. I think weight gain is another one of those true misconceptions, because menopause doesn't cause weight gain. But that superpower of estrogen, it really affects our metabolism. It affects our, muscle mass. More muscle goes to fat. All of a sudden, we're gaining, our fatty deposits in the midline, right? Stomachs, butt, thighs. So there's sort of a lot of associations of what the power of estrogen is doing to our body. But brain fog, Kelly, it always depends on how bad it is. Tell me how bad.
I'm wondering if so also I am not sleeping like I used to. Oh. I'm sure that is contributing to the brain fog. Is menopause causing me to not sleep as well?
Yeah. So there are about 35 symptoms of menopause. And, the most common, hot flashes, night sweats, we call vasomotor, affects our sleep. And of course, you're hitting some of it, but heart palpitations, mood swings, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, vaginal dryness, issues related, the plethora of issues related to sexual desire, vaginal dryness, frequent bladder infection, many, many, many symptoms of menopause. Insomnia, poor sleeping is such a bad one. Yeah. Because of what you just brought up. I mean, not only if you don't sleep well, you don't think well.
Yes.
You're more prone not to want to exercise. You don't feel as good. You have more fatigue. It leads to depression. I mean, sleep is like so important.
Yeah.
So sleep is a big one. Sleep is a very big one. Is that all you have, Kelly? Just
mostly. I also, coincidentally, when I went through menopause, broke up with my boyfriend, and wasn't seeing anybody for 3 years. And in those 3 years, did not have any sex. So going back to sex.
Wait a second, not even with yourself?
Well, okay, that's different. No, I meant with somebody else.
I love this conversation.
Truly, I wasn't even like wanting to do anything with myself either. And I think that might be the lack of estrogen, right? That like lack of desire, right? I got into such a mood that I didn't want to have anything to do with men. I didn't want to talk to men. I didn't want men to talk to me. I didn't even want them to look at me. Like I was so over men. And maybe it was just like a bad breakup. But I think maybe it also had to do with menopause. Was like I was so done with the whole
it's funny.
Yeah.
When Kelly admitted this to Tamlyn and I, she said, I haven't had sex in 3 years. You should have seen our jaws hit the ground. We're like, Tamlyn, I think you said, wait, you're Kelly who? How is that
possible? But Kelly, that's why I haven't seen Kelly. No bladder infections, no yeast infections. Because as soon as she would call me and say, hey, I'm having a bladder infection, I'd be like, are you having sex again?
Right. But here's the thing. Once I did try to do it again, it was so painful. Like, what the hell?
Totally. Yeah. You know what? This is really one of the biggest issues related to menopause. So menopause, right? It's you lose your estrogen. We forget how hydrating and moisturizing it is to the vagina. I mean, besides all the other things that we'll talk as relates to Kelly's issue right now, because I'm worried about Kelly. I'm worried about all your vaginas, really, because
Thank you.
Yeah, Tamlyn, we want to prep her. We want to prevent Kelly's vagina onto you. So the thing is this: if estrogen, when it goes away, no longer, it really it hydrates. It gives blood flow to the vaginal tissue, which allows for good natural lubrication. So that's gone, and then the tissue gets thin, and you lose all that beautiful pink plush vaginal tissue. So then you get, pale skin that's dry. You haven't had sex in 3 years, so the opening gets smaller, right? That opening of elastic tissue starts to collapse. And I wrote a whole chapter on the collapsed V in my second book because it's not just about, okay, Kelly, get a good lube. That's your issue.
No, it's not about.
Right?
So yeah, it's not about dryness. Right? It's a whole different mechanism going on down there.
Yeah, well, less blood flow. And then there's less blood flow to the vulva, right? The outside of the vagina, everything that's outside. So the clitoris, the erectile tissue that you can't really see, there's less blood flow, so it's harder to have an orgasm. So now you have a dry vagina. So it feels like you're having sex, in like sandpaper. And then it's harder to have an orgasm. Although, this is where, there's a lot you can do aside from getting a good lube, because lube should be involved in every intimate, I think, situation, because it feels so much nicer, but especially as we get older and we create less of our own. So good lube, but also how are we and how are you, Kelly, moisturizing internally? If you're not on estrogen, right? Because, if we talk about how to treat it, are you?
I got estrogen inserts, those little pill thingies that you pop in there.
There you go. Well, that
changed my world.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Wait. So, okay, can I interrupt for 1 second? Because that all makes sense, right? The dryness that's happening as we age and lower estrogen and things like that. But the other issue that a lot of women complain about, again, maybe in silence, is lower libido, right? It's like,
100%.
even if you weren't having all these other issues, your libido is like dead or very like non-existent. So that's certainly related, right?
Yeah. And again, because sort of, right, our erogenous zone, our biggest one, is up here. And, we don't have estrogen around, which is, really important for, desire, along with androgen hormones like testosterone, less are produced by our ovaries. So it's true, our desire will be less. And then add, you're tired because you're not sleeping, and you're depressed because you've gained 15 pounds, and, you're irritable. So we just aren't even in the mood, so there's so many mechanisms of desire. And then you add painful intercourse or painful touching, or just even, wanting to have sex with yourself. So there's a lot of balls in the air as to why our libido is lower. And it's just, I just this conversation and understanding it helps you realize the why.
Yeah.
And so to your, May, it's so true. Like, there's a lot of reasons. And I think it's attacking each one of these areas and working on it. So Kelly's already on the right path, because the treatment for this vaginal dryness, we call it genitourinary syndrome of menopause, GSM. It's your typical medical word that's so long and it's a mouthful, but it's dry vagina, and dry vulva, and, bladder, which is also part of this area, right? The bladder, a lot of people have frequent urinary tract infections, or loss of urine, or frequency of urination. The bladder is involved, and menopause is brutal to this area. It's like, women can get by the hot flashes, night sweats, and so on, but vaginal dryness and the effects, the collateral damage, is a tough one.
Tamlyn, I'm going to bring you into this because here we're in the different stages of menopause, which is very interesting. That's why this is a great conversation. So Tamlyn has been through menopause. Kelly, you've been through it, or you're still going through it?
No, I'm done.
You're done. Okay.
I mean, I'm through it. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm just starting, I think. So Tamlyn, you said before we started this interview that you went through it and you had really hardly any issues.
No issues. But when Dr. Ross is talking about the issues of vaginal dryness and loss of libido, this is what I'm dealing with. And the conversation right now is very, very meaningful and helpful, because this is what I'm going through. But this is after 8 years of going through menopause with no hot flashes, no brain fog, no pain issues or any of that. I'm still as active as I can be, and I still feel like I'm 16 and dancing around with no underwear and socks on, because shoes off. But I just wanted to really plug in, actually, for our audience, just to make sure that everybody can have access to Dr. Ross's information, because she wrote 2 books, She-ology and She-ology, the sequel, and they're both available on Amazon. And we I think all 3 bought them, and it's on our Kindles. So just to be able to plug that, those 2 books, because these are difficult, topics to talk about, even with our friends. It's like, are you guys okay? It's like, because I don't know how to, still have sexual relations, and having those conversations, with our loved ones, our loves, male and female too. It's like, how do we do that, and how to practice, self-love, physically and emotionally, but also our partner love. It's like, how do we deal with this? Because this is an issue not affecting only me, but our partners who we love.
Exactly.
With Kelly, it's really interesting, because I'm with my man, my love, for nearly 18 years, and Kelly is starting a new one. So it's like this, May.
And I'm in a 2.5 year relationship. So he's actually starting to go through this with me. So it's interesting. But here's
You
the
might be
thing.
going through menopause, a little menopause.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
menopause.
So here's the thing though, Dr. Sherry, this is a perfect example of how menopause is not a cookie cutter situation. It's so different with every individual.
Right.
That's what makes it
Right.
even more complex, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Kelly.
Kelly has something to say.
No, I was saying, going back to like the relationships, right? I do hope that a lot of men will tune into this and not be afraid to listen to this, because I think it's really valuable information for partners, right? To understand what our bodies are going through and not just get angry at, your lack of libido, or, being uncomfortable, or, how grouchy you're getting. I mean, there's a lot that comes with this. And if you don't have an understanding partner who understands what all of this entails, this could lead to a lot of, resentment.
Problems. Yeah.
I mean, this is, communication is so important. I mean, when we talk about, misconceptions of what's happening where women aren't addressing their issues, it's a team approach, right? I mean, with so many things that it's a medical condition that's completely normal and natural, and you should be sharing that with your partner, just so they know. And communication is just the key to, and your kids, if you have kids, or talking to your dog, everyone has to know what you're going through, because
I think that's what's important, is like our parents, my mom didn't talk. So it's like, again, but, we are this, the evolved generation, and we're responsible for passing it along to our younger sisters, and younger brothers as well. It's communication. But, I feel sometimes that I would love to bring my love into the gynecologist's office, which I have not been to since pandemic. So this conversation is really lit a fire under my butt.
Tamlyn. Okay, you better make that appointment. Yeah.
I know.
So I have a question. While us women are going through menopause in our 50s, what are men going through? Is it the same?
It's not quite the same. I mean, because they do, affectionately, we call it menopause, but it's not as dramatic, right? It's not all of a sudden, estrogen, testosterone is no longer produced. Can you imagine? It would be like, we'd have to call FEMA. It'd just be like an emergency.
It might be a more peaceful world.
Yes, true. They lose testosterone over time, and it, I don't know how it begins in their 40s or 30s, but it definitely, Stevie.
Oh, I hear tapping of dog paws.
Oh, my dog got out of the gate, and he's having like free reign. Anyway,
we all have dogs.
Yeah, I have the
cats.
Oh, cats.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
But this is much more worth than any damage he's about to cause to my house. So, no, I'm kidding. But men do lose testosterone, and that does happen over time. But of course, they have the, and it's sex. It's everything to them. For them, I don't know if food's above sex. I don't think so. I think sex is first. Yeah. So, and they have the blue pill, right? I mean, our mechanism for sexual dysfunction is very different. They take the blue pill, and up it goes, and that's it. I
did a commercial for them, by the way.
You did?
Perpetuating that, Kelly. Okay.
Erectile dysfunction.
But it's so true, Dr. Sherry. They have so many different, sort of sources and medications to turn to, whereas women's health, especially women's sexual health, has largely been ignored. So that leads me to the issue of what this New York Times article was talking about, the history of hormone replacement therapy. It was something that was so popular, in the early 2000s, right? But because of one report that came out that was not very well done, that linked some sort of cancers and other, side effects of hormone replacement, it just dropped. Like nobody took it anymore, and doctors were not prescribing it anymore. So can you talk a little bit about that and how it's changed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, that study, the Women's Health Initiative Health study that went on in 2002, it was this big study that was going to look at the safety of estrogen and progesterone. And there was almost 30,000 women involved, and it was, really the eyes of the world and the medical world were looking at it to see, and they stopped the study prematurely because all of a sudden they said, these women are at risk for, breast cancer and blood clots and strokes and heart disease, and like in a matter of seconds, anyone that was taking estrogen and progesterone stopped.
Yeah.
And then really what happened, they looked at it, of course, over the next, I don't know, within the last 10 years. Thereafter, they started to really look at it, and they found that the study was flawed. And they found that, in fact, estrogen, progesterone was safe to use, especially within the first 10 years of being diagnosed, which is, sort of under 60. And if you, didn't have breast cancer, or you didn't have a history of blood clots, or certainly any risk of pregnancy, or issues really with clotting or liver problems, that you could safely take it. And the breast cancer one was a big one, because all of a sudden it was like, well, your risk of breast cancer is 1 in 1,000, and now if you take it, and if you take it for more than 10 years, your risk might be close to 3 in 1,000. And so it became very like all of a sudden now we had to retrain everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to tell doctors and patients it's safe to take it. But what I really think, and one of the big problems with why women are just so lost in the menopausal journey is like they're not having the conversations with the right doctors. Right. Because most doctors are going to be like, nope, just look at your diet, or exercise, but no estrogen.
Still,
a lot of doctors still don't recommend it, and that's unfortunate, because we know that there's safety involved now, as long as you're getting your mammograms and sort of doing the right. Of course, you need to see your healthcare provider yearly, but mammograms are really important, and dosage is really important, because again, you have doctors putting in pellets. I hope that's not you, Kelly, because I don't know when I saw you last with estrogen, but the bioidenticals that Suzanne Summers made so famous. They're not FDA approved, nor pellets are not FDA approved. They, marketing we know is always powerful, but they're not any safer. So I don't know if and Tamlyn, doesn't sound like you needed hormones. But a lot of women are looking for help in the right answer.
I mean, I have friends who say that the second they went on hormone replacement, they felt 1,000 times better, and they weren't suffering anymore. And again, I'm citing this New York Times article. It says that there's a generation of doctors who went to medical school at the time when this study was influencing this whole idea of it being bad. So that's why if you go to certain doctors who went to medical school at this certain time, they will be absolutely anti-hormone replacement. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we have such a broken medical system.
Yeah,
It's like, I don't know where to begin. That's like another segment.
Oh, wow.
But I think as it relates to women, and the issue is much bigger, to talk about how women are marginalized in every aspect of life.
Yeah.
And medicine is no different as it relates to heart disease, and studies being done with women, pretty much on every level. It's not about women. I mean, we're making strides, but there's definitely, a fight to be had when we're speaking about our health.
Yeah, I mean, we can easily go down the path of what this conversation really entails. It's about centeredness, and it's about centeredness towards the male, and it's about control of our bodies and what help and facilities and discussions that we can have. And it is, because it is difficult, because it's so extremely personal. But I guess when women, again, the average age, when you're saying are hitting 50, starting to look at 51, the usual onset, what should women do in discussing with their gynecologists and or their primary doctor as to what a plan of action is? Because I think that would be most helpful, because we are so different. But what should every woman do, or learn how to talk with their physician?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's, we are empowering women to pay attention to their bodies, right? And people don't even know that what they're having symptoms are even related to menopause. So knowing, so it's sort of a twofold thing, issue for me. I mean, yes, you need to know that maybe joint pain and knee pain could be related, or, to menopause. Heart palpitations can be related to menopause. Or even depression and anxiety, because classically we know, okay, irregular bleeding is going to be one of the most common. Hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, those are the typical ones, but there are so many as it relates to our emotion, sort of how we're feeling, even bloating. So knowing what is happening with your body is important to go to your healthcare provider. I highly recommend going to a gynecologist. You stand a better chance than with an internist. What are your symptoms? Why is this happening? And what can I do? What are my treatment options? What are they? If I'm having a hot flash, because hot flashes are very disruptive. So, it does sort of speak to knowing what's going on with your body and educate yourself. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Dr. Google, but I'm a big fan of going to the MayoClinic.com or even WebMD. They have so many great available sites now, or listening to Shoes Off Inside, podcasts where you're getting good information. Because you have to partner with your health and your body. You can't rely on doctors ever to rely on doctors.
But hasn't that been the case historically, though, is that we just trust doctors, that they're supposed to know what they're talking about, so we should just trust them. Granted, you're right, Dr. Google is not the wisest thing to do sometimes, but that's actually empowered some people to at least do some research about what's going on. But I do have kind of an interesting question. Do you think that women should actually go to female gynecologists? Do you think that's
interesting question? Yes.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, I will say yes. No, I not necessarily. I mean, in some way, yes. We've been through it, or Tamlyn, it's a good thing you haven't really suffered too much. There is something to be said for empathy, because what if you go to someone under 50? Or they haven't gone through menopause.
Exactly. That's the other thing too. It's like,
it's more importantly, finding a healthcare provider that's going to listen to you and guide you and really give you the time. I mean, if the average time a doctor spends with a patient is somewhere between 7 and 11 minutes, you're not going to you can't really talk about your, vaginal dryness, right? You can't really dive deep into that topic. So I think it's finding someone that's compassionate, that can listen. Maybe it's a referral from a friend that's, been to that doctor. Yelp reviews are great too. So it's finding someone that's going to give you the time. And sometimes it's making that appointment unrelated to a pap smear or mammogram. It's just to sit across from someone, no legs and stirrups, clothes on, in the doctor's office, just to go through it, to really ask the questions.
Right. Well, I will tell you what my symptoms are. So so I'm about to turn 57 next month. So I'm a little past the, sort of prime age, I suppose, for menopause, but I am not having night sweats. I do have brain fog. I do feel like I hit some depression. So that my moods, sometimes I do feel like there's some depression kicking in. My libido, it's suffering a little bit. And possible vaginal dryness, but it's because I'm not really having that much sex right now. So, I don't really know. So they're definitely, I believe these are definitely obviously symptoms, right? I haven't had my period in now going on 4 months so far.
Yeah, well, you're late to menopause, man.
I know, totally.
You're late to menopause, although, average is 51. I was 55 when I went through it. I think it's just important to document menopause, just to make sure that, your bleeding is stopped. I mean, someone who's over 55 that's still bleeding, I may want to look at your uterine lining just to make sure you don't have any issues related to precancer cells of the uterus. So I do think documenting your menopause with a blood test, looking at your ovarian hormones, estradiol and FSH are the two most common. FSH is your most sensitive. And then again, it's looking at your symptoms of like, how disruptive is it? Like, if your depression is really affecting your ability to socialize or do your normal activities and really, feel good about yourself, or if you're having negative thoughts, that can really be deep and harmful. You can just treat the symptom too. Estrogen can help that, but sometimes it's getting on an antidepressant. And so it's looking at the disruptive symptoms and really sort of, sifting out what is what.
Yeah.
And how disruptive it is. Because hormone replacement therapy is fantastic. It's a fantastic treatment for something you've lost. We're replacing what you've lost.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the thing. I think women, especially women like us, we try to tough it out, right? We're like, oh, we'll just grin and bear it and we'll be fine. So I think that's something that we need to get over, of trying to be too tough and trying to internalize all of it, right?
And the other thing I just want to say, because you all kind of said it, you used the word going through menopause, like I'm through with it. And I find that to be such an interesting word, because to me, you never go through menopause. I mean, you're in it. Like, this is the next chapter. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the vagina and bladder as it relates to vaginal discomfort, with or without any sexual activity or intimacy or penetration, I mean, you can just have burning and irritation inside the vagina that's progressive. And that's a lifelong thing that can happen. So to me, it's just the second chapter that you're going through. And at some point, whether you're using a vaginal estrogen, which is really the treatment of choice for, this GSM or vaginal dryness, it's moisturizing, right? I mean, my whole thing is we should be moisturizing our vulva and vagina like our face. I mean, you don't use the same bar of soap to clean under your arms as you do your face, do you? Well, you don't really want to use that same bar of soap to clean your vulva.
Right.
But to me, I mean, I'm sort of on this movement of like, we need to start talking to our kids, our teens when they're in puberty. You need to wash your vulva. Do you know your vulva? Do you even know where it is and what it looks like? Let's take a mirror. Let's use the right words. Let's moisturize, because that's delicate skin.
Do you still recommend coconut oil?
I love coconut oil.
It's the best.
Yeah, I put most of my patients know I'm a big fan of coconut oil, and it's a great lube. It's really great. It's anti, microbial back for fungal. You can't use it if you're needing to use a condom. That's the only caveat, because you can't use it all. Right. But it's great natural lubricant. But I also like to use it on the outside of the vulva. It's just amazing. So one of my I have an intimate skincare line that's coming out in the summer that is pretty much made with coconut oil as the base in a moisturizer that actually treats the dryness. I mean, it's preventative. And if our girls are using a moisturizer on their vulva, they're not going to have to chase the dryness that we're going to get in menopause.
So you were talking about not using the same soap that you're going to use on your body to wash your vulva, right? Why are there no special soaps? And what do we have to look for to make sure that we're using the right product?
Yeah. I mean, there are soaps out there. I mean, there are some out there that are specific for the vulva, pH balanced, no chemicals, nothing that's going to offset. It's really about
no fragrance, right?
Right. So it's sort of like why you don't, that beautiful, French bath soap you put in your bubble bath from France is going to give you a wicked yeast infection. It smells good, or something from Maui that smells like Maui, but your vagina will not be happy. So it's finding the right product line, which do exist more. There are a lot of dermatological soaps that are good for the skin too.
I never knew that you had to moisturize, take time to moisturize there. I just, you just take a shower and you wash up, whatever. But no.
Yeah, it's new. So, I would always tell my patients, use coconut oil. For dryness and itching. Use coconut oil.
I love this. I love this. This is news to me. It's like, oh,
me too.
Okay.
Another use for coconut oil.
Well, that's what I'm on a mission. I'll have products, but it's really about this right now, what we're doing, and we're communicating about how we, as sort of, our sex is related, like how we can start taking better care of our vagina and vulva. Like we weren't really talking about these areas in the last few years. We've all of a sudden they're coming out of the closet, which is great.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of on a movement of this conversation, changing the narrative, and it's about using the right words, right, for the vulva and vagina, and why 60% of people use code names for the vagina and vulva. What did you guys call it? Did your mom go, "This is your vulva and vagina"? I'm curious.
No. We use the Chinese term "ching ching," right? Which is like what children call it. And when I was growing up, I called it a pagina. Yeah. I remember telling my auntie about my pagina, and she said, "Your what?" And I said, "Pagina." And she said, "No, it's vagina." I said, No, it's pagina. I was so sure that's what the actual word was.
No, we never talked about that at all.
Exactly.
No.
I don't know if it's an Asian thing or if it's just a generational thing.
I think it's both.
But
it's probably both.
Yeah.
I mean, in my house, we never talked about it. We never talked about sex. I never talked about sex with my parents. Never. And
I did. It was just don't have it.
Oh,
that was
well,
it.
yeah. Don't have
Roman
it until
Catholic.
Yeah, don't have it until you get married.
Yeah, it's about having the ability to practice talking about it, because again, when we're talking to our girlfriends or our female friends, asking about how's your health, because we're all talking about, the COVID, of the last 2 years, or, aches and pains, but it's like to be able to ask how's your mental health first, and then how's your sexual health, because sex is just not always about sexual relations with your partner. It's about your own sex with yourself. It's about, masturbation, and about self-pleasure as well. And it's about the equipment, that goes on into having, good and healthy sexual health. So I think it's about really, really relying on these kinds of conversations and saying, yeah, my mom didn't teach me how to use a tampon. I had to learn from my PE teacher. And she says, because you have to go on the swim team. And I go, she goes, you haven't used a tampon? And I go, no. And then she goes, well, and so that was, and it was a relief for my mom, because I don't think she knew how to use one at that time either.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder if, though, teachers, PE teachers or coaches can get in trouble now for teaching young girls these things.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
How many of us learned our sex ed from our volleyball teacher?
Yeah, exactly.
And that, it's just, so we're not taught well, like growing up. And you hope it's from, whether it's your mom or your aunt or, someone, a role model in a young girl's life. But I do feel like women and mothers, there is a little bit of a responsibility to communicate certain things so that young women aren't afraid. And they're my favorite group to talk to, because they really do want to know.
Yeah. But they don't know
and
what
they
to
want
ask.
Permission.
Yeah.
No.
So that's interesting, Dr. Sherry, because I was going to ask you that. Do you still find, as a gynecologist, in this day and age, in 2023, that women and girls are still reluctant to be very open about their sexuality and their sexual health. And, they don't ask the questions.
Yeah, it's a lot better. I mean, because it's a lot better, I will say. Like 2023, it's really, I think this generation of teens are surprising me, and they're, when I say, are you sexually active with men, women, or both? I mean, but I think there's a lot of hope, for our future generations. I really do, because I think, to the betterment of social media, to some of the negative of it, I do think young girls are learning the language.
So here's something that I need to help shine a light on. Now, along with menopause, when we get older, our bladder doesn't seem to want to hold as much. Yeah. Like when I go to workout class and everybody else is doing jumping jacks, I cannot do jumping jacks.
No,
because if I do, I have to run to the bathroom first, make sure I pee, and then do my jumping jacks. Otherwise, I'm like, in risk of
leakage
peeing all over the place.
Yeah. Okay.
For the longest time, I thought there was nothing that you could do about it, and that was age. I recently heard about physical therapy for your bladder.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So you're talking about, this is a big problem. I mean, like over 50-60% of women have loss of urine. Mm-hmm. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm over 60. So I definitely, a lot of us have these same issues. So the pelvic floor which supports the bladder, the vagina, the rectum. They're muscles, and if you really you haven't been doing your Kegel exercises where, you do 10 reps 5 times a day, or you've had babies, or you're, just aging, obesity, coughing, a lot of things weaken the pelvic floor. So what you can do are your Kegel exercises. The way you find them is, when you're urinating, you stop your flow and hold it 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, let it go. Urinate again, hold the urine, 1,000, 2, 1,000. And if you can hold it 10 times a day, and you hold it for 3 seconds, let it go, and you do this, daily, you will strengthen your pelvic floor. Pelvic floor PT does really help too.
Wow.
So PT actually consists of actual exercises, right?
Like Kegels.
That you go to like a specialist, and they show you actual exercises that you can do, so you don't pee yourself every time you cough or sneeze or laugh.
That's right.
Right?
And you don't have to. You don't have to wear Depends.
They're very helpful. They're very underutilized. I highly recommend them. But just doing Kegel exercises, honestly, like when you feel or you cough or jump or you're working out, you will automatically contract your pelvic floor, and you can do. I mean, I just did 3 right now. So, I mean, it's helpful, right?
I mean, I know you're supposed to. Like, women make jokes about it. I don't do them, I have to say. I'll admit that. I know I'm supposed to. But do you guys, Kelly and Tamlyn, do you do
I
Kegels?
like doing it while I drive.
Oh, good for you.
In LA, you get stuck in traffic so much. You might as well be doing something.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. When you're sitting around for an extended period of time, I think that's,
Oh, okay.
It's an easy go-to.
Yeah. Again, good
That's
reminder.
the perfect time.
There's some sexual benefits too, because if you're, you can do Kegels, and it kind of helps with orgasm too. And if you're having you're having penetration, if you're with a male partner, if you contract your Kegels, it will tighten your, pelvic floor muscles on the penis, and they like it too. So It's kind of win-win. Kegels are just good. We don't talk about doing them enough. I mean, loss of urine, I think menopause is taboo. Loss of urine is right up there, because it's just another issue we don't talk nearly enough about.
So you just
It's
brought up
the worst. I was afraid to laugh for the longest time because I was afraid that I would actually pee myself. So I would like stifle my laugh because I was afraid that it would, end up being everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously, you want to empty your bladder frequently and empty your bladder before you work out. It never hurts to talk to your, gynecologist about it. Sometimes it's going to a specialist, a urologist, to just make sure nothing else is going on. I know Kelly hasn't had a lot of babies out her vagina, so it's not a anatomical issue, because sometimes the looseness can be part of why women have loss of urine.
In your book, you talk about this vagina revolution. There was something that you talked about, like was it the Senate, where the word was banned?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, where they were talking about an abortion issue, and they didn't want to use the word vagina.
Yeah. Wow.
The politics
Isn't that crazy?
No play. I mean, this is. I'm on the board of Planned Parenthood. I feel very strongly, that abortion care is health care, but politicians have no role in medicine. It's just never good. Yeah. So it was, they banned the word vagina on the Senate floor.
Isn't that ridiculous? And these are people who are, making laws.
Yeah, they're policymakers. Yeah, no.
And you can't even use the word.
Right. We live in a very puritanical society still. Let's face it, right? And so they're trying to impose that on us and women are under siege. Let's just agree with that, right? Even though it's 2023, we are under siege. And so unfortunately, these decisions are being made on our behalf that we don't even want. So that's the sad part.
That's why we need more women in politics.
Yeah.
Can help us make these decisions and bring the word vagina back onto the Senate floor, please.
Exactly. Well, again,
instead of using the word ching ching or ping ping on the Senate floor.
Right. And again, I think it was a parallel that this woman wrote, this New York Times article, where she was saying, imagine if men suffered from these ailments and suffered from all these side effects, and their penises were atrophied and dry and shriveled, and they went through hot flashes and things like that.
Right.
Imagine the response that menopause would get if it were if it were men feeling this way. So same thing with all of these other issues that females, are going under, but we're, being told to not say certain things. Dr. Sherry, go ahead.
Just so do this real quick is, think about sexual dysfunction and erectile dysfunction. I mean, if there are over 26 FDA approved medications for erectile dysfunction, and we have two. But sort of the sexual injustice of inequality under the sheets with menopause. I mean, every aspect of healthcare. It's just, I'm optimistic that we are all sort of banding together arm in arm and just not taking it anymore and educating women and not making them feel so shameful when they go into menopause, right?
Right. And even just talking about sex.
This is why we're doing this.
Right. So Dr. Sherry, one question, important question. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to women, not just women who are going through menopause, just about how to get more in tune with their sexual health and wellness and sexuality and like having more fun and, being more, playful? I mean, what would you advise? What's the advice?
My advice really is you have to be your best healthcare advocate. You just have to, really be in tune with your body and understand that there are normal hormonal transitions that we all go through. And there's treatment. There's treatment for all of it. There's treatment for menopausal symptoms. You have to learn and educate yourself and be your best healthcare advocate. Find a healthcare provider if you don't have one right now. There's telehealth right now. There's a lot of ways people in the Midwest, they can access healthcare providers that are really going to listen and pay attention. And if you meet one and you don't feel a good vibe and a good connection, find somebody else. Find someone until you really feel satisfied and that you're being helped.
The piece of advice that Dr. Sherry had left is like, you are your own best healthcare advocate. And I think for May, Kelly, and I, we're also looking after our mothers as well, because, and that's my focus. So again, that reminder, of us, going through, these issues of sexual wellness and sexual health also applies to all areas of, our general health. So I thank you for that reminder, because it's, where we have to, and it's about serious about having fun sexually, but it's also about serious about living well and healthfully. So thank you.
That's really, and women get better. I mean, we're getting better with age, and we're just getting into our stride come 50. We have a seat in the boardroom, we're running companies. Like, we need to be working on all cylinders. And, we're seeing more accommodations for women in menopause in their workplace, and there's more voices are being heard. So it's really exciting time for women, I think. But we also have to empower ourselves to, not be afraid.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Sherry, thank you so much. This is a conversation that we want to keep having. In fact, we were saying we should just do a series of episodes on menopause and women's health. So
much to cover.
So much to cover. So this was a great
Yeah.
introduction to so many topics and issues that we want to continue discussing. So we would love to have you back. But thank you for your time.
We'd love to have you back. Yeah. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, I may be calling you when I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening.
Me too. It's like, okay, I think she's in Santa Monica. Okay, that's LA. Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you, Dr. Sherry. Take care.
Thank you, Dr. Sherry.
Okay. Keep up the good work. I love these conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there is one thing that I need to share, one of my personal stories, because I got many. She talked about joints, right, getting affected because of menopause. So one of the things that happened to me was I got frozen shoulder on both shoulders at different times. It was the left side first and then the right side. Anyway, when I finally went to, because I was starting to film and I was like, I have to be able to move my shoulder, so I went to see a specialist. They sent me to an orthopedic surgeon, this guy who works on a lot of NBA basketball players. He used to work on Kobe Bryant and stuff. And I said, what caused this? Because you just wake up one day and all of a sudden your shoulder hurts. It's not like I injured it. It's not like I, had an accident or anything. It just, I thought maybe I slept on it wrong. And then it just kept getting worse and worse and I couldn't move my arm. And the next thing you know, it's frozen, right? And then it goes to the other arm. So what he told me was, he said that because of my age, he thinks that it could have been related to menopause and the fluctuation of the hormones causing this joint problem, frozen shoulder.
But you would have never thought that, right? You would have never thought that.
It's one of those, I was amazed to hear Dr. Sherry said there's 40 symptoms of menopause and, other ailments that women can experience, and they're not automatically assumed to be connected with our lady parts or our sexual health. So that's really, what does frozen shoulder feel like? Does it literally freeze?
It literally freezes. First you go through this super achy part, and then all of a sudden you can't move it. You can't lift your arm, or sometimes people get it 2 arms at the same time. And you can't drive, your arm is stuck to your body practically. You can't hardly move it at all. It's ridiculous.
Well, see,
and then when you get, there's 3 different stages. When you're in the last stage where you can finally move it again, it's so painful. So man. It's this crazy. The Japanese actually have a term for it. They call it the 40-year-old shoulder, because it happens right around your 40s often.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah. And then so your doctor, the orthopedic surgeon, what was his prescription for you to?
Well, I went to him to finally get a cortisone shot.
Okay.
Because I had to be able to move it to work again, in order to, because I was going back to filming. I had it over the quarantine, so it wasn't so bad when I couldn't move it, while we were in quarantine. But once I had to start working again, I really needed to be able to move it around and not look so stiff while I was shooting.
Oh, so this was pretty recent. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it just goes to show, like we were saying during that conversation with Dr. Sherry, there are so many symptoms that we might just brush off as, oh, it's just an
Right.
ache, or it's a pain, or it's just a mild depression, whatever. It's not connected to menopause, when it actually might be. And there's a way to treat it. And yet we're told, just ignore it and it'll go away.
Right.
So that's why
But also,
this conversation is so important to have, to be more aware.
yeah, and then we're also, just piggybacking, because you don't go through it, you're going through it. You consistently, feel, other symptoms or other triumphs as to getting older and how our bodies are going to change specifically and individually with each of us. Yeah.
My brain fog got so bad that I went to my other doctor and I said, I need to be checked for Alzheimer's, because both my grandmothers had Alzheimer's. And so I was like, I need to know if I have the gene or not. And she kind of just giggled, and she says, I don't mean to, take this lightly, but she says, you don't have Alzheimer's, you have menopause brain. And I was like, that sucks. Well, when I finish menopause, is it going to stop? And she goes, well, I don't know. And I said, well, how long is menopause? And she said, some women could go through it for 10 years. I'm like, 10 years? Like, I could be this dumb for 10 years? Like, how is it not coming back?
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
She's like, I don't have the answer.
Is it better
But
now, Kelly? Is it better now?
No, because I'm not sleeping enough. I'm having such a difficult time sleeping.
Okay.
And so I'm sure that is the number one contributor to my brain fog.
Sure.
But she did have something very interesting to say about the Alzheimer's. She says, we don't test for Alzheimer's anymore because there's no cure. And she says, well, what are you doing for your brain? And I was telling her, eating the wild blueberries and the walnuts and, taking all these supplements and blah, 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 blah. The only thing I'm not doing is sleeping. And she says, well, you're doing everything that I would recommend. And because there's no actual cure for Alzheimer's, we don't test for it. Because even if you do find the gene, there's nothing you can do about it.
Oh, man.
I would just tell you to do all the things you're already doing.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
And there's nothing that we doctors can do. So again, it's a financial issue,
Wow.
Exactly. And so this is also why there's this conversation about having like 40 different symptoms, right? Imagine if this was all included in our insurance, all of these things that are related to menopause, how much more they would have to spend on treating our symptoms.
On treating
Yeah.
research.
That's very true. Well, Dr. Sherry did admit,
Yeah.
as a doctor, our medical system is very broken. So
Right.
It is.
yeah.
Right.
So, all right. Well, ladies, I think this was fantastic. This was exactly what we were all hoping for in this conversation. And we've decided that we're going to continue talking about women's health and sexual health and sex and all those things that people are too
Let's
afraid
talk
to
about
talk
sex,
baby. Let's talk about you. Yeah, exactly. So, but appreciate it. And Kelly, thank you so much for getting Dr. Sherry to come on the show.
Thank you so much for bringing
She
Dr.
was
Sherry on.
fantastic.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was great.
Yes,
So
and She-ology, her book, I give it out to all my friends. Let me tell you, it is the best.
great. All right. Well, we will do the same. So, all right. Until next time, then. And Kelly, you're in Atlanta. Tamlyn, you're back here in LA for the time being. I am too, but we're all kind of going all over the place. But yes, so take very good care. It's wintry weather right now here in California, so I'm just going to hunker down and stay inside.
Summer in Atlanta.
Oh, it is? Okay. Lucky you. Okay. Bye, ladies.
Okay. Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.